Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
Imagine a quiet field. The terrible sound of fighting has finally ended. It is October the 14th in the year 1066. Near a place called Hastings, many people lie dead on the ground. King Harold Godwinson, the English ruler, is among them. His army has lost the battle. A deep, heavy silence follows the terrible shouts of war. This moment marks the beginning of a big change for England. It is a terrifying quiet. With King Harold's death, more than just a battle ends. An entire way of life, built on words, begins to fade away. A whole language, Old English, starts to die with its king and his people. This was not just a defeat in war for a king. This was the start of a language being completely destroyed. It was a language spoken by almost everyone in England for hundreds of years. How could just one battle begin to break the language of an entire nation? How could a single day change how millions of people speak? This is a big mystery we will explore. Old English, the language of the people, seemed strong. But it had a hidden weakness inside it. This secret made it easy for the language to be taken over and reshaped by another. It was surprisingly open to change. This story will take you on an amazing journey through time. By the end, you will understand a secret hidden in the English words you use every day. You will learn about the French parts, like hidden DNA, inside our language. You will see how English almost died completely. But this difficult time helped English become stronger, more flexible, and eventually a global superpower, a language known all over the world. But first, before a new, powerful English language could be built, the old one had to be completely shattered. It had to be broken into many pieces. In the next chapter, we will uncover the surprising and rich world of the Anglo-Saxons. This was a sophisticated culture, full of great stories and beautiful poems. This was the world that William the Conqueror was about to burn to the ground and change forever. 2. A world before the Normans. Before the year 1066, the land we now call England spoke a language called Old English. Forget ideas of rough or simple people. This language was full of beauty and complicated rules. It was a Germanic language brought by the Angles and Saxons many centuries before. Its grammar worked like German or Latin, with words changing their endings to show their meaning. This was the language of great poems, such as Beowulf. This famous story told of heroes and honor. Poets of Old English used special phrases like whale road for the sea, painting strong pictures in listeners' minds. They also loved alliteration, making sounds like the click and clang of consonants at the start of words, creating a special rhythm. This showed how rich and powerful the language was. Old English was built with great precision. Nouns had different endings to show their exact role in a sentence. This was like each word having a clear job tag. This complex system allowed words to be placed in different orders, and the meaning would still be clear. This precision helped poets create vivid and powerful images, a kind of linguistic strength that is now gone from modern English. By 1066, Old English was not new. It had been used for 600 years, forming a deep culture. It had many important written works, stories of history, laws, religious books, and much poetry. Even after attacks from Vikings, it had kept its core and even added new words from Old Norse. This was a land of sophisticated learning, with its own kings, legal traditions, and a strong church. Harold Godwinson, the English king, ruled a wealthy and developed nation. The Battle of Hastings on that fateful day did more than just end a king's rule. It put this whole rich world at great risk. It meant the possible loss of a truly unique way of speaking and writing, a culture built on precise and beautiful words. This complex and beautiful world was about to be cut off from its head. When the Normans arrived, they did not just change the ruler. They began a careful plan to take over the culture itself, using a weapon far more powerful and lasting than any sword. What was this secret weapon? 3. The new French bosses. After the Battle of Hastings, a new time began for England. The Normans, led by William the Conqueror, did not just take the crown. They started a quiet, powerful change that affected the country's language and its people. Their main plan was simple but brutal. They replaced the English leaders with French ones. This was not done through new language laws or by forcing people to speak French. Instead, it was about who held power and who did not. William quickly took most of the land from the English lords. He then gave these valuable estates to his many Norman followers. This meant that within a few years, French-speaking people now owned most of England. A very important document called the Domesday Book, finished in the year 1086, clearly shows this huge change. This book was a detailed list of all land, animals, and owners in England. It proved that almost all English land was now in Norman hands. This was more than just a change of ownership. It was a huge cultural cleansing, removing the Old English noble class. This change created a kind of language separation or a linguistic apartheid. French quickly became the language of all important matters. It was used in the king's court, for all laws, and in the government. Even the church, which still used Latin for its services, saw French become the main language for its leaders. English, which had been the language of the Anglo-Saxons, became the language of those without power. It was spoken by peasants working in the fields, by servants, and by ordinary townspeople. If someone wanted to rise in the world, gain wealth, or hold a respectable job, they had to learn French. This was not forced teaching, but a conquest of prestige, where French simply had all the value. The Normans also built strong castles, like the famous White Tower of London. These buildings were made of stone and showed everyone the new order's strength and permanence. They declared in stone what French lips spoke in the courts, that a new ruling class was here to stay. In some areas, like the north of England, William even ordered widespread destruction to break any remaining English power. When these regions were settled again, it was often by Norman people. So English did not disappear. It continued to be spoken by many people. However, it became a folk language, meaning the speech of common people. The rich and powerful spoke French, and English was relegated to the mud of the fields. It truly seemed that these two languages, French and English, were designed to be kept separate forever, like fire and water. But how did these two very different languages, spoken by two very different groups, ever begin to mix? The secret was not found in the grand castles or in the busy courts. It was found in a much smaller, quieter place that the Normans could not fully control: the nursery. 4. A mix of two languages. History books often tell of great kings and big battles changing the world. But for the English language, the biggest change came in a quiet place: the nursery. It was not a king, but an English nurse singing a lullaby to a Norman nobleman's baby that truly mixed the two languages. This was a new way for language to change. After the Normans won, many Norman men lived in England. Over time, some of them married English women. These families often had two languages spoken at home. The father might speak French, and the mother would speak English. The children grew up hearing both. Their nannies and servants, usually English, would also speak English to them. This created many bilingual households. These children learned English, but often not perfectly. Old English had very complex grammar. Words changed their endings to show their job in a sentence. For example, the word king could have many different endings depending on if the king was doing something or if something belonged to the king. These endings made Old English difficult for new speakers to learn fully. When children in these bilingual homes learned English, they often dropped these complex word endings. It was easier to understand who was doing what by the order of the words in a sentence, not by the endings. So, the old system of many word endings, which was the backbone of Old English grammar, slowly disappeared. This change was not planned. It happened naturally, in homes and daily talks. The result was a broken or simplified English. The children of Norman fathers and English mothers spoke a new kind of English. It was a language that had lost its old, complex grammar. This new generation grew up speaking a tongue that was a mix, belonging fully to neither the French world nor the Old English world. But at the same time, not just the grammar was changing. Thousands of new words were also coming into English from French. We can still see a secret code in our words today that tells us which ones came from the conquerors and which from the conquered. 5. New words for a new life. After the Norman conquest, England saw a clear division. English became the language spoken by most common people. French, however, was the language of those in high positions, like the rulers and the rich. This created a linguistic apartheid, a time when two languages lived separately, each for a different social class. Because of this, many French words poured into English. These new words were mainly about power, law, and the good life. French gave English its words for all aspects of government and justice. Terms like government, parliament, court, and justice all entered English from French. The powerful feudal system also used French words for its parts: castle, garrison, war, and prison. Even the words for fighting men and their deer, such as soldier, battle, and armor, came from the conqueror's tongue. If you wanted to talk about power or law, you used a French word. The influence of French also shaped how people spoke about food and culture. Norman nobles enjoyed fine meals, and with them came French words like roast, boil, sauce, and plate. This explains a well-known linguistic idea. English kept Germanic words for the living animals, such as cow, sheep, and pig, because English peasants often cared for them. But the meat served on the tables of the Norman elite gained French names like beef, mutton, and pork. This small difference in words tells a big story about the social classes in medieval England. Beyond the kitchen, French words enriched English vocabulary for polite behavior and the arts. Words like courage, honor, courtesy, and fashion all came from French. Even words for deep human feelings and spiritual ideas, such as pity, mercy, and grace, joined the English language from French. This massive influx of new vocabulary made English uniquely rich, giving it many options for expressing ideas. However, this also meant that the original, native English language was constantly challenged and pushed to the edge. For almost 300 years, English was often seen as the language of the working class and the streets. French remained the language of royalty, nobility, and authority. Then a dramatic event took place. What single, powerful change finally turned the tables and made speaking the language of the enemy fashionable once more? 6. The return of English. For a long time, French was the most important language in England. It was the language of kings, nobles, and judges. But two big events changed this. First was the 100 Years' War. This was a long fight between England and France, starting in the year 1337. Before this war, English nobles often felt French. They owned land in France and spoke French. But when England and France fought, French became the language of the enemy. It was not good to speak French anymore. English people started to feel more truly English. The second big change was even more shocking: the Black Death. This terrible sickness came to England in the year 1348. It killed many, many people, maybe half of everyone in the country. Because so many workers died, the people who were still alive became very important. These workers mostly spoke English. For the first time in many years, the English-speaking common people had power. They could ask for better pay and better lives. Their language, English, also became more important. It was no longer just the language of the powerless. In the year 1362, something important happened. The government made a new law. This law said that all court cases must use English. Before this, courts used French. The law said that most common people did not understand French. So they needed to hear what was happening in their own language. This was a big victory for English. It showed that English was finally returning to places of power. But there was a strange thing about this new law. Even though it said courts should use English, the law itself was written in French. Also, many lawyers still liked to use French and did not change quickly. This showed that French still had a lot of power in England, even as English was coming back. English was now used in courts and by many people. But many still saw it as a rough language, not good for beautiful poems or important books. People believed that French or Latin were better for art and literature. It would take a brave person to change this idea. This person would need to make a big choice, one that could risk everything, to show that English could be a language for great stories and art. 7. A hero for the language. For many years, French was the most important language in England for important people and writings. English was spoken by common people, but it was not seen as a language for great books or poems. This began to change with a famous writer named Geoffrey Chaucer. Chaucer was born around the year 1340. He came from a family in London that had connections to the king's court. He was well educated and traveled a lot. He knew French and Italian very well, just like an educated person of his time. He worked for the king and saw the world. People expected him to write his serious poems in French or Latin, which were the languages of prestige. But Chaucer made a brave choice. In the 1380s, he started to write his most famous work, the Canterbury Tales, in English. This was a big risk for him. Writing in English was like a modern director choosing to make a big movie with a shaky phone camera instead of a professional one. English was still seen as a simple language, not fit for great stories or complex thoughts. Chaucer's choice changed everything. The Canterbury Tales showed that English could be beautiful and deep. He wrote about many different people, from knights to cooks, and made their stories lively and real. He proved that English was strong enough to tell important stories, to show humor, sadness, and deep ideas. He used a poetic style similar to French poets, but he did it in English. His work made English respectable. It was no longer just the language of the street. It became a language for art and culture. Because of Chaucer, more people started to write in English, and its status grew. He helped English complete its journey back to being an important language. Chaucer showed that English could be beautiful. But the old conquest had left a lasting mark on the language. English now had a strange double nature. This made it one of the most powerful languages, but also one of the most difficult to learn. We will learn more about this final secret soon. The English we speak now. Chapter 7 spoke of a lasting scar on the English language. This final chapter will explain what that means. English is a special language today because of its mixed nature. It has a core of old Germanic words like hand and father, but it also has a very large number of words from French. This blend gives English a unique strength. We often have many words for the same idea, each with a slightly different feeling. For example, you can ask, an older English word, or inquire, a French-based word. You can begin something, Germanic, or commence it, French. You can help a person, Germanic, or assist them, French. This means English speakers can choose words carefully for different situations, making the language very rich. This mixed quality, born from the Norman conquest, made English very open. It was like a sponge for words. Because it had already taken so many French words, it found it easy to take words from other languages too. Over time, English absorbed words from Viking languages, Arabic, Hindi, Chinese, and many more. This willingness to take words from everywhere is the final secret of English. It is precisely why English became a language used all around the world. The story of English comes full circle now. It started with a terrible silence on the battlefield of Hastings in 1066. But English did not die there. The difficult times and changes of those years broke the old language. But in breaking it, English was rebuilt into something new. It became stronger, more flexible, and more able to change than ever before. Today, English is a global language. It is used in business, science, and on the Internet. It survived its near-death experience and became a powerful tool for communication. What do you find most interesting about how English became the language it is today?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.